This is the eternal story of agriculture. Families who find strength in their work, who put down their stakes in mountain valleys, who thrive on their innovation, who have heart to raise new generations, who see bright days ahead. These are the stories of America's best young farmers and ranchers, 2024. Rachel Arneson, Heath Bryant and Casey Bamberger, Bryant and Rachel Cagey, Tyler and Megan Knott, Brad and Nicole Lack. Meet Rachel Arneson, full-time farmer, full-time mother. Officially, the newest generation managing Arneson Farms at Hallstatt, Minnesota.
So 2023 marks 140 years since my great-great-grandfather, Ole Viker, he migrated to Hallstatt and started farming. I still farm some of the acres that he first owned in 1883.
Being a full-time female farmer still has its moments.
Being a woman in a male-dominated industry, it's actually something that I forget about on the day-to-day, just because everyone in my immediate area is so used to me, they're very welcoming. But as soon as I go out of my little bubble, I'm immediately met with questions like, well, do you have a brother that's farming with you? And it's like, well, yes, but he works for me. There was one gentleman, I remember, this happened within the last year. I can't remember at what meeting I was sitting next to him. And I just politely said, I try not to let it irk me too much, but my response to him was, everything that you do, I do.
Casey Bamberger and Heath Bryant are third-generation partners in Bryant Agricultural Enterprise at Washington Courthouse, Ohio. They're also cousins who are learning to work with each other.
We both, I guess, just kind of boots on the ground, worked really hard at first, and I think we did two things really well. We respected each other's talents, but we also respected each other's weaknesses, and I think we offset each other in a lot of ways. And we've tried to surround ourselves with a lot of people that balance us well and allow us to continue to farm the acres that we're farming, but do it in a way that our grandfather did when he was able to physically see and touch and be on every single acre.
As is almost always true, father and son have those transitional moments.
We have I would say, a really good father-son working relationship. It was rough at first, I think, just because I was full of all kinds of energy and had all kinds of ideas and plans, and he took a little bit of time getting over the whole listen to me, slow down. But now that I have earned, I guess I would say, some respect, and he's seen some of my decisions that have worked, it's made it easier for us to communicate together. And now just here, it's almost like he shows up and wants to know what he's to do today, versus when I used to show up and it was like, hey, what are we doing today, Dad?
Casey long felt the draw of the farm.
Yeah, so I decided in high school that I wanted to return to our operation, and actually it was pretty heavily discouraged by my father, not necessarily because they didn't want to welcome me back, but more so I think agriculture is very cyclical, and it was more around they knew the likelihood was that Heath was going to return, and would the farm be able to support that many families. And finally, I guess one day convinced my dad the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, and I think we're both pretty stubborn, which Heath would probably agree with that, that this is what I wanted to do.
Meet the Cageys, Bryant and Rachel. They're a family that moved back home to Maysville, Missouri in search of wide-open spaces for their kids and those time-tested values found on the American farm. The couple made 4 moves in 6 years and added 2 children along the way.
You know, working for Deere was really my dream job, so to leave that was, it was really hard. So yeah, to go into that UPS store and put all my company stuff in a box, swipe the corporate card one last time and throw it in the box and tape it up, you know, it was like one chapter of my life was totally coming to a close. So it was a big change, and we knew it'd be a big change, but that was kind of the reality that there's no turning back now. You know, we're committed. We both grew up in the same, you know, town from start through high school graduation, and just felt that that's would be a better situation for our kids and our family, and would build the values that we found were important.
And so I felt like it was a foregone conclusion that someday we would end up back here. And so when it came time, we had 2 babies out in Grand Island, and I wanted to be closer to family, and I wanted our kids to grow up free and able to run outside and play in the dirt and raise cows and run through the fields, and so it was an easy decision. We were just very thankful for his family being willing to say yes, and figuring out how to make it work to bring a 3rd family into the farm was a huge blessing.
Rachel remembers that first harvest season, full-time farming, and lonely nights.
That first harvest season was hard. I knew I was becoming a farm wife, but I didn't really know what that meant. I thought I did, but I didn't. And so I was probably not a whole lot of fun to live with either that fall. But every year has gotten easier as I've learned to understand the roles of a farm wife and what those long hours look like, and how I can be the best partner for Bryant during those long, hard seasons, and helping myself and the kids understand that Daddy's not choosing to be gone all these hours away from us on purpose, but that this is part of the job and part of the lifestyle we live.
Knott Land and Livestock is a 4th-generation ranch, with the 5th generation, 2 young Knotts, taking root in a business, sustainable and productive.
I guess both my father and I have had the opportunity to grow up and live on this place. Neither one of us have ever really left except for going to college and when Dad served in the service. Working with my dad and working with my grandparents truly instilled a love for the property, a love for the work. If I'm not out of the house by 5:30 in the morning and still coming in at 9 o'clock at night, I don't think I put in a full day. You know, that's kind of the way our family's always been.
Tyler and Megan manage pastures by need and by conditions of climate, but mainly to keep their animals on fresh forage and fresh water from June through November.
We try to manage our pastures and have a deferred rotation system. I call it a adaptive grazing management, because sometimes weather or certain climatic conditions don't allow us to have a perfectly structured rotation.
We carefully manage which species are grazing and how intense they're grazing, and rotate that carefully, so we're making sure to mitigate fire damage and reseed and control weeds and all those things.
Megan and Tyler have come to understand they have to be storytellers, telling consumers how they raise food and yet protect the land.
That's the biggest challenge that I think agriculture has to overcome. We have to be able to tell the story, and tell the story truthfully, and gain the trust of the American consumer again. A large percentage of the consumers don't appreciate how much effort and heart we're putting into it.
Brad is a 1st-generation farmer, but has been working in agriculture from a young age. His first big step into production agriculture was buying a combine.
It was a 1994 John Deere 9400, 2-wheel drive, 20-foot auger head, 6-row corn head. And now we're running around with a S790 with a 40-foot draper head and a 12-row folding corn head. I mean, it's unbelievable. You double the capacity of one machine, and you're going to drive twice as fast in the field, so you're going to get 4 times as much done as we did when we started this out, 15 years ago.
Brad's business is growing with the help of a retiring farmer, Randy Kleinhans.
Randy's got the old farmer mentality. You just cannot replace that experience.
It started from initially him planting corn for us, and it has grown into quite an extensive custom operation, which is by far their biggest source of income. Between the work ethic and the honesty that has allowed this business to grow to the extent that it has, and the trust that the clients put in him has been tremendous.
As the owner of land and equipment, Rachel's father's approval is important. In earlier days, that was not always guaranteed. But over time, and with Rachel's good work, he's grown to trust her judgment and management.
I remember actually the first couple years that I was back, my dad exhibited more doubt than I did. I really had to convince my dad that I can do this. I can drive a semi in beet harvest even though I've never driven a semi before, because for the simple fact that, hey, we need someone to drive a semi during this shift in beet harvest. I kind of had to psych myself up in a lot of situations, but there were a lot of personal tears that I wouldn't show to anybody else, but when I was struggling along the way in convincing myself as well as others that I can do this.
For Bryant and Rachel, the warm welcome home they received from his father and grandfather was a special gift.
Yeah, I think I've always looked up to my dad. I think something about him is he works incredibly hard every day, but he never really asked for any credit. I really do look up to my grandpa as well. He has had an incredible career putting something together in a way that very few others could do it.
As the in-law in this farming relationship, I'm so grateful for his parents and grandparents, because the characteristics he described in his dad and his grandpa are the reason that we had the opportunity to come back here. And we know, personally, we know from friends that not everyone has that opportunity. And so we are incredibly grateful that they gave us this gift to have the lifestyle that we have today.
Yeah.
10 years ago, Brad says he would have never dreamt being where he is today. The journey is not over.
It's priceless, because the things you can learn by, especially the older farmers. I appreciate all the older generation that we work with, because you cannot replace those years of experience and the wisdom that comes with it. And they'll tell you, is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? I mean, they've been there, they've seen it. And I respect that a lot of all of them. I just love doing it, everything about it, and it's just so inspiring when you go out there in spring and you put a seed in the ground, and when we come back to harvest in fall and taking care of that crop all year. It's so awesome to watch that crop, go on the ground and grow and then turn into something. And like we're chopping corn silage and we get this mountain of corn silage, and you see the seed bags that it started out with in spring and what you put into it. It's truly amazing. And year after year we keep doing it. We're getting better at it.
The ethic that established Bryant Agricultural Enterprise is the foundation that sustains it today.
The biggest thing is I don't want to get so big that we overwhelm ourselves. I think that's what a lot of guys get to a certain point where they think they just have to get huge real quick. And sustainable growth is what we've always been doing, or what we've always done, and that's what we want to continue to do.
The goal would be that we would become a better business tomorrow than what we were today and what we were yesterday. Our grandfather founded our farm on integrity and loyalty and trust and respect and being a good steward of the land, and that will always come first.
Tyler and Megan are planting in their children respect for heritage and purpose to meet their future.
I think it's a rare thing today for people to grow up with such a deep sense of place. And these kids are getting the opportunity for that, a place that's just instilled in history and wild and still wild. And I think that it creates character and builds character. Yeah, and just allows them to grow up to be good people.